welcome, party people, to the place to be. This is so stupid.
And the music, the intro, and the countdown, I was just kind of, yeah, we're going now.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, Austin Action Fest, Austin Action Heroes and Friends. I'm Benjamin Nathaniel Reddick II, aka the Violence Conductor. We have with us Danielle, Queen of the Universe. That is a big deal if you can't tell. And Keisha CG. Okay, look, she looks cool. I like that, CG. I like that. And our special guest today is someone you probably already know and love because she's awesome. And her name is Laura Herring, the director of These Hands Are Made for Knocking. Let's get some noise for her. Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. So, Laura, how you doing?
Doing well, man. How about y'all? Sorry, that's very Texan. I was like, it came out immediately. I was like, oh my God, I sound super Texan. Okay.
That's not you Texan. It is what it is.
Ain't nothing wrong with being
Ain't
Texan,
nothing wrong.
you know. So, good to have you here today. We're gonna have some fun. We're just gonna be very informal. Just talk a little bit about film and talk a little about who you are, what you do. I know a lot of our people and a lot of our viewers saw you in the 2022 event because you came to the event and actually spoke on one of the panels. So, if you could just kind of give people a brief overview of who you are and how you got into film in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll say that before I ever fell in love with film, I was, as a kid, huge into movies, huge into books, and I was writing a lot. I did my first short film when I was 17 as a project where I took all the theater rejects and we're like, hey, you want to be in this film with me? All you have to do is one monologue for the semester and then you don't have to do anything else. And they're like, yeah. And so we did that. And, doing that process really made me realize like, oh, I really like filmmaking. This is fun. So I went to UT and I, basically, majored in filmmaking there and kind of started off on that path. And, as far as, the things that I like to do, I'm very much into genre films, films that, kind of, there's, there's a little something else to it that you're very intrigued by. So for These Hands Were Made for Knocking, this was a short film that I originally wrote as a short story, and very much inspired. I had a lot of, these overarching male figures in my family life. Both of my granddads were boxers, and boxed in the military, did all that. And then, so all these stories kind of followed me. And, someone who, as an artist, I have my own mental health journey and so forth. I really wanted to write a piece that was about, people, finding faith in something higher themselves and being able to draw upon that in order to get through tough times, get back up. So that's really the message of my short film, and the boxer, it's such an external thing, it's, so mental in so many ways, but it all starts with your internal relationship with yourself in order to win that fight before you even get in the ring. So that was a really big inspiration why I chose to go the boxing route with that. But ultimately, it's supposed to be a story about, finding your own strength and, having the faith to see that, there's more that you can aspire to and going for it. So.
No, actually, I think the boxer is a great analogy when people talk about life in general. The thing that's so cool is that almost you can't not get touched essentially when it comes to boxing, right?
Yeah.
You may not get defeated, you may not get knocked down necessarily, but there is no way to get through like a boxing match and no one puts a hand on you at all. And one of the things that's always been cool is one of the reasons people really like Rocky is that getting knocked down is inevitable, as it is in life. Do you have the strength to get back up? when everything hurts, when you don't even know if you can win, right? Will you get back up when the odds are against you and it's just much easier to stay on the ground? And as a filmmaker, especially independent filmmaker, I think that is critical. It's like if your why is not big enough, when you get that 10th, 11th, that 100th no, will you keep going or will you fold? So now that's an awesome, that was an awesome one. And I know and then we got a chance to work with you on that one a little bit. And you had, who else was on you on that one? That was Kelly Riot, right?
Yeah. So, I'm a big fan of bringing in people who are specifically experts at what they do. And, as a director, I hadn't done action before. So it was important for me to bring in someone who was able to guide that process so it actually translated onto screen. And so I hired a good friend of mine named Kelly Riot. And Kelly, she does a lot of stuff, including, director of photography, directing, stunts and so forth. And I brought her on specifically as a action director and choreographer. So, we did all the pre-visualizations before we ever stepped foot on set, where we had the actors rehearsing, going through the motions. So, and that day that we filmed all that, it was a tough day, but not because of the action. It was the action stuff went the most smoothly that day. It really saved our bacon, honestly. So that we did all that prep work. So huge advocate, bring in the experts, people who can really elevate your stuff to the next level, especially if you don't have, as much experience in something in particular.
And do you find that now that you've done a couple of things that do have action in them, do you find that that's normally the case where the action isn't what makes things take a little longer? Or is it normally, in your experience, that does make the day drag a bit?
Yeah, I've had my own sets. I've been on a few other people's sets. I think it really comes down to prep. When you have the actors, like, they know their moves, they rehearse their moves, they've done it numerous times where there's muscle memory involved. For me, that's the fastest part of the day, is filming those scenes. It can be challenging if there's a stunt, and, someone has to fall a certain way, or, sometimes that can take a little bit of time to do. For me, falls have always kind of been something where, that might take a little more time than the actual, people making the motions and so forth. But it's still, something, when you're an independent filmmaker and you have like so much time in your day that you're trying to get through, so you get everything you need coverage wise, it can still be a little bit of a challenge. But the sets where people are just trying to figure it out on the day and wing it on the day, those are super challenging. Like, I don't recommend that. So I've been on a few of those for other people, and I was like, okay, this is what not to do. So.
Yeah.
Question for you.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, real quick question. Did you see any differences in just the producing of an action film, and what did you take away that was like, this stood out, that was really different from an action film versus a traditional narrative film?
Yeah, I think with producing, it's always coming down to breaking down what elements that you have within your script and so forth. And with action, it's, kind of what I was saying here, it's just like, we need to make sure that you put the forefront of thought and strategy in your production towards the action, because that's part of what's going to sell your film, right? So, being able to, kind of strategize your pre-production with that in mind and so forth. I mean, it's a really big, aspect when you are producing the action films. So it's kind of like if you were to be doing a special effects heavy film, you want to have tons of meetings. You want to have, like, everyone knows exactly how you're going to do it. Because there's always like this percentage of stuff that you plan for where it's like maybe 20-30% doesn't happen the way you want it to. But if you can at least get close to everything that you want, then you have a lot more, to offer in the film, in the edit. So
Thank you.
yeah.
I was going to ask, so I know you said that that particular day on set, some things weren't quite going the way that you had planned for them to go. So I know, like, we all have been on sets. We all have had those days where we're like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? So
Yeah.
what do you normally do when you're on set and that starts happening? Things start, kind of going way left. How do you help things get back on track?
Yeah, and absolutely. I'll say that day in particular, we had an impromptu conversation with the brewery that was next door, where it was just like, oh, we're supposed to open for 4 hours, which, they originally hadn't been open the last few weeks. So, we were kind of so we had to negotiate very quickly, like, okay, well, do you mind closing? So, we're not catching all the music and everything. I had a featured extra disappear suddenly in the middle of the day. I was like, where did he go? No one knows. So we had to shoot around that and bring someone in. He had already been on camera, so it wasn't like you could just replace them. So he showed back up. It was very interesting. Very funny and weird how this stuff happens.
And you don't even ask, hey, where you been? You just kind of keep rolling like, all right, he's here, let's go.
That was in our experience what we had to do.
I don't even think I knew that happened.
Yeah, no, that was funny. I ended up working with him on a different set many years later, and I kind of looked at him like, but
Did he disappear and show back up at that time?
not for that one, luckily.
That's good.
And
That's
then
good.
we had a lot of like makeup going on as well. Our actor for this black eye that was I think we had a little bit of a bump with like some of the prosthetic stuff. So we kind of had to allocate a little bit extra time to getting that fixed so it was camera ready. And so those are just things that like kind of started making us go a little bit longer. The other thing that can be a challenge with independent filmmaking is the production moves. So we had one scene at the beginning of the day where we were filming at Richard Lord's boxing gym in Austin. And then, our production move was only 10 minutes away to where we were filming all the stunts for the fight scenes. But, loading out, loading in, getting all of our personnel. That's where the guy just disappeared in the middle of the day was during this whole production move. That took a little bit longer than we had anticipated. So it set us behind. So there was a lot of things that we were kind of like, oh my gosh, we're going behind schedule here. But as a director who, is trying to keep that in mind, I don't want to make people work crazy hours. Everyone's kind of used to the 12-hour day. But, and we had done 12-hour days up until that point, but that was the day where it was like, we just have to buckle down and push a little bit extra hard, at the very end and go a little over so we can just get it done, and luckily everyone was super game and we made it happen. So
Awesome. Yeah. Those days where you just kind of got to keep pushing, make it happen. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like that. So in your experience, besides company moves, is there anything else that you think if you're a newer filmmaker, some things that they should be looking out for that will be either time sucks or money sucks when it comes to your short film or feature film production?
Yeah, and I think production moves is definitely a one to keep in mind, if you are filming multiple locations in a day. That usually means you're going to have a little bit extra time in the middle where, you're going to lose a few hours potentially. Even with a well-organized production, even with like a strong AD, things happen, it's just, it is what it is on that. In terms of the things to kind of look out for, I would say that, your department heads are one of the biggest, assets you will have on a film production, and so trying to attract people who are really good at what they do is important. You know, because you want a director of photography who, you know, for my film, for instance, you know, I knew lighting was a really big deal. And so, you know, I specifically was looking for a DP that had a lot of experience with lighting. And, you know, my DP I brought on, who's amazing, Josh Verduzco, originally had come up through the electric department with lighting. He was a gaffer for years before he made the, you know, the transition into camera and becoming a DP. And so that was that added so much value because he knew how to make a lot with less. So that is a huge thing where you bring expertise into your film. You know, production design. Philip Rios was my production designer. And, you know, he is also like, he works in the, you know, here in the Austin industry. He has a lot of resources. He knows, you know, how to bring all these things together for you on a budget, you know? And so, you know, that's the thing where it's like, it's worth paying your experts, you know, and bringing those people in, because at the end of the day, they're going to save you a lot of money and a lot of, you know, time.
I think that's one of what you said there is actually really interesting. Is the intangibles, right? If you have, so for instance, Kelly Wright, most people here in Austin, Texas, they know who Kelly is. They know she can shoot and she can do good choreography. She's going to make you look good. Yeah. If I don't know who your fight choreographer is or your stunt person is, I may not be comfortable or feel super safe working with them. In addition to that, the right stunt choreographer or person might be able to get people at a discount. There are people who might be willing to work with them and not charge a full rate because they know the quality of their work or they always wanted to get on their radar. And I think a lot of times when we're casting people and filling the crew out, we sometimes overlook some of those intangibles. It's not just, do they have the skill set to do it? Like my grandma Mabel might be able to do makeup on the set. She could probably do it. But if I get a professional makeup artist, they're going to have other people they can bring in. They may have referrals. They may be able to get discounts on the products that they're using. They may have everything we need, so I don't have to go buy all of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So these are some things that I don't think a lot of people consider when they're just casting. It's not just what it costs to put the person on a role there. There are other things involved that you can consider.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So actually, let me see if I can pull this up, because if I can, this will be a lot of fun. I think I might have the trailer to these hands up somewhere. Let me see if I can get this thing to share like it's supposed to here.
And your movie looked amazing, by the way. Like you said, the lighting, you really wanted to focus on that. The lighting was great. The cinematography looked awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
I'm big into the coloring and set design. Yes. And so, yeah, that was really nice. Very nice.
Let's see.
Symbolism. There's a lot.
Let's see if it's going to run for us.
You're doing great out there, Marcus. You're doing just like me and your old man taught you. Your dad would be so proud. This is your fight. This is your time.
You've been fighting in school again?
The only knocking you should be doing is in those books, Marcus.
Do you tell a lion not to roar? You should be teaching him how to fight.
Life has a way of knocking us down. But people who believe in more than what they can see right now, those people get back up. They don't know what it costs us. Cracked fingers, broken ribs, ruptured kidneys, bruised spleen, ears ringing, back spasms, endless pills.
Then why'd you do it, Dad?
Because sometimes you realize these hands were made for knocking, son.
All right.
Trailer. I hadn't seen the trailer.
Okay.
Really good.
Also, hire a trailer editor, because I edited my film, but I was like, I don't, you know. So.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you kind of, this is a thing that happens a lot. Most of us end up just doing it ourselves, right? What are some key differences that you are aware of between a trailer editor and someone who just edits anything
Yeah,
else?
absolutely. I think it's just like your goals are different, right? When you're editing a film and a narrative, you're trying to find the flow and this rhythm of each individual scene, and how they all tie together. And then as a trailer editor, it's really someone who can watch and have an objective viewpoint of your work and say, oh, these are the exciting images, these are the exciting elements, these are the things that are going to create desire for people to actually want to see the film. So, and it's a skill set. I know a few people who can kind of bounce between the two, but ultimately for me, I just was like, I'll let someone else do that. And very happy that I did, because my guy did an amazing job on that. So
No, that makes a lot of sense. Also, you're not as objective.
yep.
There's gonna be certain shots that are your baby, and you're gonna want to stick those in there. Yeah, I try not to edit my own trailers if I can help it. But I definitely understand what you mean. And then there's scenes you're like, oh man, this is so good. And it's like, yeah, because you have the context of how that fits together with some other stuff. To somebody else, they have no idea what these people are talking about, and they don't think it's cool. So,
Right.
but I mean, a lot of that's actually true of people talking about hiring editors in general, where,
Yeah.
you have to kill the proverbial baby, and it's easier for an editor to do that than you. So,
Yeah, and I would definitely say for a long form project, I would much rather bring in, a head editor. I like to edit, so I doubt I'll 100%, put everything onto someone else. But at the
yeah.
same time, it is very helpful because, when you're talking about like a lot of the filmmakers, in past, present, future, you talk about how many evolutions your script goes through to become a film. You have the writing, you have the production, and the editing is the last big one where it's like that is the ultimate shaping of your project. So having someone who can see the vision of it and being able to actually like draw it out, it's a huge skill. And sometimes working with an editor is also very valuable because they'll see things that you don't if you're too close to the project. Like my editing took way too long because I kept re-editing. And I'm like, I really should have brought someone in sooner. But I just was like, oh my gosh, like, what about this? What about that? And so, but having someone else, who can like bring out your work, it's definitely faster, and it can be a huge benefit for your project.
Cool. Okay. Well, so you're doing a lot of things the independent route. How are you going about the fundraising side? Like, what's your technique for that? Is it go to work, make a bunch of money, shoot a thing, or like what's your plan typically?
Yeah. So, I'll just like separate, some of this out. For short films, I've done a number of higher budget short films. And, it's usually dependent on the project. So there's different ways to go about it. For these hands, we were able to kind of secure a patron for the film, who was willing to be like, I'll help fund you, do all this stuff. I really like the message. I like this project. And knowing who you talk to, because short films, you're not going to make a lot of money, if at all, so, it's like this big, like, oh my gosh, how do I make money on it? It's hard, so, not unheard of, but, it's hard. And so, finding someone who might be willing to just, because there's an emotional connection, there's a message, there's something that, you can talk to someone who has some extra funds who might be willing to invest in that, can be powerful. And then also, for me, I always just talk about, not only do I believe in the message of the project, but I want to raise a certain amount because I want to pay, at least our key core, production team, the money doesn't go to me or my producing team necessarily. It goes to the people we're hiring. And I want to be able to offer something because, we do a lot, for free and stuff. And that's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, if you have the opportunity to pay people, like people are so stoked about that. And it can also help people very excited.
It makes it much easier to ask your spouse for the time to go do this thing on the weekend when you can at least say, I got paid something for the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that is, something that, I used on these hands for the proof of concept up in the HOUSETOP short. We actually did a really big fundraising campaign to crowdfund a good amount of the cost of that film. We raised $25,000 on IndieGoGo, and that was that was months in the making, planning. The two directors, who brought me on to that project were originally talking about, I think we want to do this, and I'm like, okay, but are you willing to do the work to have a successful crowdfunding campaign? Because you can't just throw it up. Maybe a few people will put a few things. Yeah, if you're raising like $2,000, maybe that's easy. 25, no. you got to strategize. And for me, a big part of that is personal outreach. Reaching out to your friends, reaching out to your family, and telling them before you do it, hey, I'm probably going to be doing this. Would you be interested in helping us with this? And sometimes that personal connection, really helps people be like, yeah, I do want to help, now that you're asking me, And so, and just like telling them before you even do it, it's really, kind of making that announcement, building that anticipation and so forth is a really big, part of that. And then every platform has their own, strategies in terms of, how do you ask people to, basically contribute in order to start getting traction on the platform. So then the platform will put your algorithm higher. So then other people who might just be like, oh, I really like this project, will put some money in.
I want to make sure that I followed what you just said. So you use these hands are made for KNOCKN. You use that to help you raise the money for your next film. Is that what you were saying? Proof of concept?
No.
Maybe I misunderstood what you said.
So these are two separate projects. Hands, kind of a standalone, my director piece. And then Up on the HOUSETOP was one I produced, which is a Christmas horror comedy. And that was a lot of fun. We had stunts, Ben actually was there for that.
He was in that too.
Kelly Wright was our stunt coordinator on that. And that one is in particular is a proof of concept for a feature film because I think it's very strong, and our goal was to do the short first. And I'm glad we did because we learned so much that's going to be very applicable for the feature because there's a lot of special effects, VFX, stunts, things that are, going in all of those directions. So yeah, you're definitely trying to find a good strategy and, and how you execute all of that. So it does translate onto the film set. And so for that one, the directors and I strategized, we're going to raise the funds through friends and family. And, basically it was a very, very successful run. I'm going to be honest.
So there's two things I want to talk about here. So one, just real quick, on the first one, you said you basically found a patron who's just ready to just loved it enough to bankroll the thing. If you don't mind my asking, was this a friend or was somebody you found like out in the world, like C-list?
It was through my personal network. So, it was someone who I'd known for years and someone who knew me personally, knew my work. And so it was a lot easier, approaching that person. And honestly, when I first had the conversation, I didn't expect them to offer to pay for the whole thing. I actually was just hoping that they would pledge
Yeah.
part of the budget, but through the conversation, they were just like, well,
Oh, okay.
you caught me at a good time. I have a little
Oh.
extra cash. And I was like, wow, okay, I won't
That's
take,
cool.
I'll take, if you want to do that, that'd be great.
And so, and on the second one, you said friends and family again. So
Yep.
the key here that people should really be paying attention to is you need to have friends and you have family. You probably want to be on good terms with them if you're a filmmaker, and you need to have friends. So don't be a dirtbag
Yeah.
or a garbage human, because you're going to have a real hard time raising money to do projects when you don't have a network of people. But I think this also plays into some other things too, where you really want to be part of your community, right? So I know we did a project, Chronicles, and it was interesting to me because I had to do a crowdfund because someone pledged money while I was doing a live, just talking about the project. It was like I didn't even have a crowdfund up yet. And someone was like, "Oh, that sounds cool. Here's $100. Appreciate you, Joey F. You know who you are. You're the alpha alpha investor in Chronicles." But it was crazy because I was just talking about it on a live stream. Yeah, man, I'm thinking about doing this. It'd be really cool. And I was like, notification, someone already sent you $100. So I was like, okay, now I have to do a crowdfund to make this happen. And a bunch of people who I would consider, how am I going to word this? These are not tight friends of mine. These are not people I go grab a drink with at the bar. But these are people that are my film fam, that I've worked with on projects and like me well enough to think it was cool and want to donate and help out. And it was a humbling and emotional experience. But that's because there were a lot of people I got to work with who didn't think I was a dirtbag. If I was not trying to be nice or helpful, or if I wasn't trying to do my job well enough on set, these people wouldn't want to give me money. So, I mean, there was nothing in it for them. They weren't investing in getting a return. They were just trying to help see me bring a vision to life. And I think that one of the things we do a really bad job at sometimes as independent filmmakers is we don't realize, hey man, you might want to go to some of those birthday parties. You might want to mingle and be friendly with people, and don't just close yourself off and work all the time. And then, hey, I need money, give me money, and then go back to work. You need to, you got to show yourself friendly out there a little bit. So.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Ben, because you'd be surprised at how many people, who are willing, who don't, who you're not super close with, who, you've met a few times or through some friends or, through this organization. And, you have a soft connection to, who are actually going to be, big champions and big encouragers for you, believe it or not. So, and like you said, it's social capital, you want to be, it's more important than people realize. And it's not just funding. It's also whenever you are trying to get your stuff seen, whether you put it online platform, whether you're putting it in a theater, you want people to be supportive of the project and of you. So hopefully that they, translate into coming out and seeing the project as well. So
I have a question for you with regards to a little bit of the funding, because you briefly touched on it. And you mentioned about the algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
And, not to go into too much detail, but I'd really be curious, and I bet you some of the audience would be also curious to know a little bit about what you saw with the different algorithms. And they need to go do their research. But
yeah.
Okay.
just to give them like a little high value information of just a summary type of a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So IndieGoGo in particular, I'll speak to that because that's where most of my experience is with. So statistically, if you are looking at the success of projects, you need to raise 50% of your project within the first few days, and then you're going to have a lull after, so many weeks, maybe a few people showing up, and then there's like a big push at the end, where you're basically getting people to, do that. So for me, the biggest thing that I can ask for is, can you give it in the first 24 hours, even if it's $5? because once you hit a certain number of donations, even if they're all $5 donations in the first 24 hours, the algorithm starts kicking in and your stuff will start going to the top. So, you know, that's the other thing where it's like, you might have friends who are like, they may not have a lot of extra cash, but you can ask them, would you be willing to do, you know, $5 in the first 24 hours? So that way it helps trigger this algorithm and helps this project. And that's an easy ask. Like, and most people are willing to say yes to that, you know? So, and then when you start seeing a lot more people who are donating, it also creates more desire, more interest, you know, for people to be like, yeah, I want to be part of this. I want to help this, you know? So, but statistically you're trying to load up as many people who are willing to say yes to donating at the top as you can. And then, you know, continually post and so forth, but especially at the end where you're trying to, you know, get across the finish line.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have any? Okay, so IndieGoGo. Is there a reason you picked IndieGoGo versus like a Kickstarter or a Seed and Spark? Because I know this is coming up a lot of times, but which platform to choose?
Yeah, absolutely. Kickstarter makes me nervous because I don't know if they do it now, but at least like whenever I've done crowdfunding, it's you know, it used to be all or nothing. I think it's maybe shifted over time. IndieGoGo, even if you don't get 100% of your funds, you'll still get something. And I always am of the philosophy where I'm like, you know, if I need to make adjustments, I will. You know, if I need to find the money somewhere else, I will. You know, but at the same time, you know, having, you know, at least something is very valuable for a project. And, you know, so I think Kickstarter maybe has changed a little bit on that, depending on, I think you can select what type that you're doing. But there has been people I've seen in my network where they're trying to raise 10,000 and they are so close, didn't get it to the end. And then, you know, it's like,
That hurts,
you
man.
know, so for me,
So
that was a turnoff. Yeah.
When you say all or nothing, you're saying that Kickstarter used to say that if you didn't raise the whole thing, then you didn't get anything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and, you know, and people will say like, oh, well, that's something where it guarantees like a, you know, if I'm doing it right, or however you want to say, but you know, is there a big difference between 9,000 and 10,000? I mean,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you know, I think if you can make it for 10,000, you can make it for 9,000. So, you know, there's that. I haven't personally done Seed and Spark. I know a lot of filmmakers do, especially for like, you know, if there's a message behind it, you know, something really personal that they're trying to, I see a lot of filmmakers go that route, but I can't speak to that because I haven't used it. IndieGoGo was attractive to us because we had friends who had successfally crowdfunded on IndieGoGo. So we were able to talk to them. What worked for you? What was, you know, what did you know? It's like the algorithm stuff. I knew about that because I was having conversations with people who had, you know, gone through the process and learned those things. And then also because it was a genre project, Christmas horror comedy, you know, there's actually like a decent amount of people who are just on certain platforms who are fans of the genre and may want to add to that. So IndieGoGo was a good spot for that type of project.
Got it. So I want to highlight one of our comments here. Chilimwe Washington says, "Happy New Year's. Keeping your people happy in the pockets is a thing." I know he has a family, so I know from personal experience that talking to Chill, you know, he's going to ask you, "What does it pay?" He will try to he'll do what he can for you, but he will definitely ask you, "What does it pay?" So speaking of Christmas, we just, you know, New Year's, Christmas, we just passed that. I think it'll be a great opportunity for us to play another trailer.
Absolutely. I want to see this.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah,
here.
I haven't seen this one yet.
Up on the house top.
It's nice having us all here together again.
Let's make a pact. A pact that we'll call each other at least once a year to catch up. life's too short not to be spent with family, right?
What? How many were out there? I don't know. I didn't see. Olivia, get something to put in front of the door.
What's happening out there?
Fuck up. Why didn't you see it? I didn't need to.
Come on! Let's go!
That's great. That's fun.
I'm crying over here because I know what everything is. Oh my gosh. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
Okay, so what was in your head? Well, who you didn't write it, right? You didn't write
I
it.
didn't come up with the concept. The two writer directors, Dakota Millett and Michael Fisher, came up with it, and they had actually filmed like a little like no budget trailer for it, like prior to even deciding that they wanted to do the project. And I saw that. I know Dakota personally because I've worked with him in the industry, and so when they were like, we want to make this into a feature, but we're thinking, do a short first so we can kind of show what we're capable of and so forth. They approached me with that project and I was like, oh, okay, I love this concept. It's basically 4 adult siblings accidentally kill Santa Claus in a home invasion gone wrong and must survive the night against his vengeful reindeer.
That's so great.
So, totally. The most like ridiculous thing, right? You're like, okay, but it's such a strong concept. I was like, okay, I love this. I would absolutely love to make you guys, I'd love to help bring this to life with you. The script at the time, when we were first having the conversation, needed more work. And originally I kind of started out as like a producer giving notes and so forth. But they did invite me in on the process to help make it go faster, and because they respected my writing background and so forth. So by the time we hit to a point where we were happy with that, we were also gearing up for crowdfunding and so forth. And that was a really big one for us to make sure we're doing that. So after that, I transitioned fully into producing, making sure we're reaching out to crew, locations, all the contracts and things like that was also something that I was working on at the time. So basically, that way the directors could really focus on, the actors and the visuals and, having the department head meetings and so forth. And, being able to really tease out and figure out their creative and so forth, which they had an idea of beforehand, but again, pre-production is one of the biggest things I'll tell any independent filmmaker. Do it. Your film will so much of the quality of your film is going to be determined by the amount of planning and pre-production you do with your team members, with your cast, and everything else. So,
with the story, I'm like wondering, it's like an alien invasion. I'm curious. I'm just throwing that in. It's the North Pole Hood invasion coming in after that.
Hey, maybe first thing, just bring in everybody.
And I go there.
Awesome.
No, I'm curious to see what the feature
me too.
has entail or how it escalates, because that's a lot
Yeah.
that we got in the short. So I'm like, well, how much more ridiculous can it get in a feature with
Oh yeah.
a full hour and a half? So I'm with it. Sounds awesome. Cool. Trying to think, is there anything else we have not covered with you that is important for us to cover? Is there anything going on? Actually, you know what? You mentioned something recently. You mentioned a movie that you're enjoying right now. So we talked about award season a little bit. What's a movie that's exciting you right now that you think is really, really cool that people should probably consider watching? Something on your top of your list?
Yeah, there's a few, but having done the boxing film, These Hands Are Made for Knocking, I was very interested in the movie Iron Claw coming out, or that came out, and especially because I was watching the scenes and so forth. Even though it's wrestling and it's not boxing, there's still a lot of, you know, very physical stuff happening throughout the film. So basically I was watching that, and, you know, going in, I knew a little bit about like the family it was based on, but I was like, oh, this is way sadder than I remember. So it's like a great tragedy, you know, and you had the wrestlers, and then you have, you know, all this loss that's happening. But Zac Efron in particular was giving such an incredible performance that, you know, I think it's well worth a watch. You know, go check it out. You know, Jeremy Allen White was amazing in it. You know, he played one of the younger brothers that was just a beast in the ring. You know, excellent stunt work for him. And, you know, it's just, so I do say like, that's one of those films that I think you should just watch just for the experience of it, because it was a very compelling, and, you know, there was still like a little bit of redeeming quality, you know, by the end of it, where you're like, oh, you know. So that was a really excellent one. I recommend to folks, especially for fans of, you know, Austin Action Fest.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Question. Can I jump? I want to jump back
Go
to
for it.
his hands.
Mhm.
So was the film healing for you? Because I know through some of the interviews and stuff like that, a lot of stuff that happened to you. Plus you have family. So was it a healing experience?
Yes, absolutely. I would say, you know, the story was with me for many years before I actually did it. And, you know, it was one of those stories that just like wouldn't leave me. It was kind of haunting me. I'm like, all right, I gotta exercise this one. And I'm glad I did, because ultimately, you know, putting it into the art that it was, the story that it was, you know, ending where I did on the script, where, you know, yeah, and not to give too much spoilers, but, you know, he does have his redemptive arc, you know, was something that was very important to me, because, you know, and afterward, yeah, I would definitely say like it felt like this huge relief and weight was off of me as an artist. You know, it's funny how certain projects will just, you know, take you over, you know, but then also just dealing with my own, you know, mental health journey and so forth, you know, you kind of externalize that in your art, you know, and process it through your art, you know. And I had incredible, you know, main actor, Felix Alonso, who put everything into that. Like, you know, he goes all the way. And, you know, it was interesting because he had a lot of parallels in his life to this character, you know, and that experience. And that was another reason why I felt he was, you know, talking to him, he was in the audition process, I felt like he was perfect for the part, because he really related to that journey as well. So we could really connect through that conversation about, you know, what we're trying to accomplish here. And so, you know, that's another thing that's really healing, is just talking about it, addressing it as you're kind of working through the whole process. So really,
He did an amazing. He was amazing. Yeah, his performance was great.
Oh yeah.
It's really good.
It helped me. I want to tell you that. So it helped me. So you don't know this, because I never thought I'd be talking to you really like this. So,
Wow.
and I didn't get to tell you this. So it helped me because I'm a breast cancer survivor, first of all, but I was a child who used to fight all the time. And so there's a lot of stuff behind that. And I've been hit, I mean, not just hit physically, but just hit with lots of stuff throughout my life.
Yeah.
And it still comes at me. But it wasn't necessarily not the getting knocked down and get up. It was the getting hit constantly, that you can still move through it. That's what did for me. So I really appreciate your story, because it touched a nerve in more ways than you know. So I appreciate that.
Yay. I'm so happy to hear that.
You're a filmmaker. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. That honestly, that makes me so happy, because that's kind of like the point of what we're doing as filmmakers. We're trying to hopefully impact people, you know. So that actually means so much. Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for making this story.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that is awesome. That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate the hard work going into that. The fact that you have like I can tell from talking to you that you do think about like the back end, some of the business stuff. I'm going to ask you a little bit about like the intentions for distribution and all those things, but and we'll wrap up with that. But I wanted to ask about the fundraising side. So you seem to know a lot about what it required to be successful on IndieGoGo. Did you learn a lot of that from the last crowdfund, or is that something that you do normally, and outside of the directing and the producing and the writing, you also run campaigns? Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't necessarily do that normally. I can say that early on in my filmmaking career, I did several projects where we did on IndieGoGo, and one, you're raising $2,000, got it. The other one, we're trying to raise a little more, did not get it, So I learned by failure on that one. And so it was really beneficial for me to be like, okay, there's a lot that goes into this. So, for me, I wouldn't say every project is right for it, or even, because again, you can probably raise a couple grand, if you're doing 2 to 5. I mean, most people in your friends and network will probably be able to, put a little something towards that. It's when you're kind of doing more that it becomes a thing. And I would say like being selective on your projects, on which ones that you think those are the ones where I want to kind of put the call out to my social network to be able to, get behind this, help us make it happen. I think being selective about that is important. And then when you're ready, look at people who are successful and talk to them, ask them what worked for them, find experts, I did a little bit of like, I engaged the crowdfunding, expert guy, Justin Giddings, who does it all the time, and so I was able to talk to him, and get that expertise and so forth that he had to bring. So, consulting the experts is a huge one. Don't be afraid to ask for people to say like, hey, I noticed you're doing this. This is what I want to do. Expert modeling is a huge part of any business that you do. You want to find the model that's working, and then actually do the research and the planning and talking to those people who are willing to talk to you, to basically try and emulate that model of success.
No, that makes a bunch of sense. I think a lot of times especially independent filmmakers, I've noticed what tends to happen is that because we have to be scrappy in so many areas of what we do, we turn that into like a virtue, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, well, just because you had to do it your way on some of it doesn't mean you want to translate that to everything. Like there are things that work, and you probably should be looking at why they work and try to emulate them instead of trying to just cut your own path all the way through the forest. It's just, you don't have to do that. And so I think crowdfunding and distribution, a lot of those are things that we can look at what worked or what didn't work and move forward and take what is effective and use that. But we don't have to try to carve this up, a brand new way. Speaking of that, as far as distribution and that side is concerned, like what's your intention for these projects you're working on? Is it typically to do self-distribution, some sort of a hybrid model, or get picked up by, some organization? Like what's your desire and plan for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll speak. I'm currently, doing the stuff for These Hands, so I'll just talk about that one. It's a short film, so it's a little different than, if you were doing it a feature film. But for me, we're kind of emulating the model that you do see in a lot of distribution plans, where you'll see, especially now, you'll see a lot of features that'll go to the payment first, where you have you're on Amazon and you pay for the movie, iTunes, all that stuff, and then after so many months of that, then they usually tend to go to a wider subscription-based service, hopefully. So hopefully then you'll be on Netflix or, one of these others. So, that's kind of a strategy that I'm currently kind of employing with the short film is, we have enough friends and family who have asked about supporting it, wanting to support it, that we're like, we're going to do, 3 months exclusive on the, Vita Fair platform. So, that way for $1.99, you can help support local filmmakers, and then from there, we're going to do a wider YouTube release. And YouTube is a very powerful engine for independent filmmakers. I think a lot of people are exploring that more. Even if you're doing like low budget features and so forth, you can potentially turn your YouTube channel into a creator's studio. There's certainly other, there's other groups that will distribute it for you, and you're kind of adding to their platform, but hopefully because they have so many subscribers already, you're going to get higher rate, higher views, which can be, gratifying as a filmmaker because your work is reaching more people. Or you can do the work of trying to create your own YouTube channel and, kind of adding content and so forth to that, which is a lot of work. Again, it really depends, what you want to do, what your goals are as a filmmaker, when you're releasing stuff. And then obviously, we have other things when you go theatrical, you're trying to get it on the platforms, the streaming platforms and so forth. But if you can make a deal directly, for someone to buy it outright or, license like a good chunk of it, that's really where you start earning your money back. Theatrical is very tricky, and not very many people, not very many distributors are, wanting to take that risk anymore because it's a lot more upfront costs. So, you're wanting to build a marketing plan from the beginning of your projects, and that's something I've learned so much more. When I did these hands, it was like, just gotta make it, and, we were doing social media and so forth. So that was good. But the more I've learned through this whole process, and moving that towards the features that I have in development, laying the groundwork of marketing is huge. So, we're going to be going to, for instance, up in the HOUSETOP, we're going to be going to horror conventions this year. We're going to be talking directly to the people, and saying like, this is what we're doing. So follow us on social. We'd love to have you, be a part of the conversation, as we're making this happen.
So when you do the horror cons, you planning on getting like a booth and having like a display, or just kind of walking around and hustling?
Yeah, we're gonna do the tables. You can bring some merchandise, things like that, some flyers. So basically that's going to be something that we're going to slowly just organically try and build our audience and the awareness of our project, because, this is something that, filmmakers, we don't necessarily want to think about that. We want to make the film, but if you're going to make the film, then you need to know how you're going to sell the film, or at least, have a producer who knows how they're going to sell this film. And you do so by creating the desire to see it, and how do you create desire? It's awareness. It's all these things, people need to be seeing this film, and before it even hits, the payment structure of things where you hit into distribution, you need people who are actively seeing it multiple times. I mean, that's why, you look at Barbenheimer, I'll just bring that up. Both of those films dropped their teaser trailers for their big, these big films a year before they actually released it in theaters. Wow. So then that's when they started marketing. It was a year before they ever released it.
That is not anything any independent filmmaker has probably ever done in their history.
So let me ask you: Do you ever cross promote on? I don't know how many of your film producer friends, including this one here, that have websites that people actually cross promote their products and then have conversations like we're having. How often do you do that?
This is kind of the beginning of my era of trying to do more of that. Okay. I want to do a lot more because, like you said, it's kind of the YouTube model of success,
exactly.
where they have this YouTube channel with this person, do a collaboration with, this other channel, and then suddenly those subscribers are aware of this new channel. And so I'm a big believer of that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I definitely think that we should have a setup situation here where, and I may have to, maybe it exists and I just don't know about it, but something that really promotes like Austin or at least Texan films. Like, where can I go just watch Texas made or Austin made films? If anybody
Yeah, that's
knows,
a good idea.
please drop that in the comments. Because one of the things I've always thought was interesting about, I'm a Texan. I'm here to do film in Texas and hire Texans, and that's a main component of what we do, specifically with Austin Action Fest and Market, because we saw so much talent drain going to Atlanta and to California. So my question was like, well, there's millions of people in Texas. How are we trying to support our own filmmakers? Like, yeah, I can go on Tubi or whatever and see movies from all over the place, but is there a place where I can just go see Texas films and support Texans?
Yeah.
I think that might be a conversation, or even if this gets to the point where we can be a hub, at least for the ones that are action oriented, where, hey, here's our pick of the week. Here's what's out from Texas people who are throwing hands.
Yeah. And I'll say this as well, not only is it important, I think for us to help each other, I think it's also important for us to get a little political in terms of the, there's politicians in the state legislature who some are very pro filmmaker and some are not, and having conversations and trying to bring up the awareness that, not only should we, there's a lot of productions that go to New Mexico and Louisiana and so forth, Oklahoma, even though they're based in Texas, because incentives, that's a big part of it. Now something huge happened for us this last season where they increased the cap for the amount of funding that they're giving for the incentive. But we're still capped at, about 22.5%, for the incentive, so there could potentially be more ways to, make that go up. So having those conversations and getting involved also is something that can be very helpful for Texas filmmakers.
I really want to get somebody here to talk with us in great detail about it. That's actually a conversation I've been curious about, because my thoughts are I always have two questions. It doesn't matter if they're talking about contract disputes or whatever. Show me the books. Where does the money go? So if we're, for instance, the state of Texas, do we offer subsidies to any other industries besides film?
Yeah.
All right, if you do, now you have to justify why you can't offer it to film. What's the return? They should be looking at it like producers as well. What is the return on the investment that you would make into the film industry? Do you make your money back? Does it actually help your economy? These are the questions, like, I want to know, because everybody's going to have like opinions, right? I want to know, like, what are the reasons for and against that are legitimate, so that I can have a proper opinion, because I don't know where I land. I know what will put money in my pocket, but I want to be a reasonable person, and I want to know the facts. So I would love to have anyone from Texas TXNPA, anyone who wants to come on and talk with us about it. Any politicians, come make your case on the Austin Action Fest and Market.
We've got the San Marcos big studios coming up. We've got the Bastrop big studio coming up. And so there's got to be something here, but that we don't know if that money's going to stay here. It's going to go out. We don't know that. So that's
also if you bring the projects here, please try to hire Texans to do those things. Do not put us in the background all the time. I don't always want to be this dude. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be that. Like, if it's a Texas movie, can you at least let some Texans audition for the good parts? Right? I think that's critical. I don't want to see people just getting to be background the whole time. That really makes me mad. We made it in New Mexico, great, and you put like 80 extras from New Mexico, and all your stars came from California. That's not cool. So all these things I'm super excited to hear. I'm happy that I'm seeing a lot more work being done here in Texas. Cast and Networks, I've been seeing stuff all day long. Every day I'm getting like 10, 15 different offers for work, which is really, really cool. I like seeing people get to work. I love it. This. I like how you said we need to get political, because I'm like, yes, we have to talk about money, and we have to talk about paying people, and we have to talk about making sure people are squared away, and being fair to filmmakers, and being fair to your artists and your creatives. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you subsidize them. It just may mean you help them do good business. And I think that's why I say the other flip side of that is that if we care as Texans and as artists about other Texans and other artists, we have to support too. We have to give to those crowdfund campaigns. We need to pitch in and help for free when we can help and guide people. We have to buy, like I'm going to have to buy a copy up on the HOUSETOP when it comes out. I'm going to buy a digital copy, right? I might buy some signed merch. Like, that's part of it. It isn't just, but in the interim, whether the politicians take care of us or not, there are a lot of things that we can do to resolve that. So I'm excited. Did we miss anything? Because I think we talked about filmmaking, origins, production, crowdfunding, distribution models, which is really cool. Speaking of which, are you going to be doing anything at South by Southwest or AFM next year?
I DVD on that personally. I will be at South by Southwest. So I will be actively networking and connecting with people that I know through that. And then we'll see about AFM.
Okay. All righty. Well, Laura, let everybody know where they can find you on the socials.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find my Instagram account at Laura Herring Films. And that is my professional page. You can also find Red Herring Productions, my production company, on Instagram. And then each of the projects have their own stuff as well. So you would be able to probably find it just from my personal socials on those.
Okay. And for the podcasters out there, that's LAURA, and Herring is HERRING. All right. Danielle, Keisha, any last words?
No, I'll just say thank you so much for your time today. And thank you so much for talking to us about your projects. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on.
Well, yeah, thank you so
We
much.
appreciate it. Thank you for your talent. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and anything you're doing with these both, shoot it to us. Let us know. We can share it on the Facebook page to help do what we can to create, more knowledge and promotion of the project. Thank you so much for coming on, Laura. We look forward to getting some updates from you as to how everything's going. Please keep us, these conversations are very helpful. I know there's a wide range of people who are listening to us, and we appreciate y'all. Some people in our audience that I can see are experienced filmmakers. Other people are just kind of getting started on their journey. Hey, Steven, what's going on, baby? Hashtag me, how's Ming Chun? So we have a lot of people who are in different areas and walks of the filmmaker life. So thank you so much, because these sorts of detailed conversations, we're telling the truth about distribution and crowdfunding and the work it takes to be successful, helps the next set of people coming up. Rising tide, all ships, that's what it's about. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. We love you guys. Keep shooting.